Sass Harati, after going 0 for 4, wins 2 straight.
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution. And we're back, and we're live for another edition of Heavy Muscle Radio. Of course, the we I'm talking about is Chris Aceto, the technician, the real technician, and myself, Dave Palumbo. And Chris, we're here on a Monday afternoon. The day is getting away from us. I had to have some stitches taken out of my gums. I had a tooth removed 2 weeks ago. And I went to the gym, and I had to drive the kids someplace. And so we are here recording.
Dave, you had a busy day.
Yeah, Monday is a very dangerous day to record on, because you know I always say you never know what can happen on Mondays, right?
Oh God! Somebody asked me to call me today. I said it's an impossibility. They said they texted me back like an hour later. They said take 10 minutes, and I didn't respond. And then they just texted me right before we started the show. Take 2 minutes. Yeah. And I text them back. I have no minutes on Mondays. None.
No, it's everything. I think everything takes 2 minutes, but actually it doesn't. And it's sad, because like if I have to be someplace and I know I'm really like 20 minutes away,
yeah,
I'll leave it like with 19 minutes to go. So then I got to try to make a minute up on the way there, you know,
like me.
So, I put the GPS on, whether I know where I'm going or not, because I want to make sure that I'm going the fastest route. And it gives you the estimated time of arrival, which is usually very accurate, right?
Yeah, very accurate.
I always have to try to like get there like 30 seconds ahead of time, just to say I beat it. I beat the estimate, like I've reclaimed some lost life that I might have had if I didn't get there 30 seconds earlier. So that's me. I actually went to took the kids for this Father's Day weekend. I took them to Adventure Island, Chris. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's a water park.
Where is it?
Water park in Tampa.
How was it?
Good.
I love parks. I don't go often, but I when I go, it's one of those things. I say, why don't I come? Yeah, we gotta get your family and my family there. Like your kids would have gone crazy. My son would have loved hanging out with your kids. They'd probably be arrested.
Yeah.
You know what they do? They take roughhousing too far, and that's.
No, that's my son. The problem with my son is that he's got a rough house with his sisters, and so if he had like someone who could kick his butt, like your son's, I think it would be more of a challenge for him at least.
Yeah.
So we, I'm not a ride guy. Like I don't know why I have this. There's really no reason why I should be afraid, but I'm afraid of the rides. I don't like to go on like the roller coasters that go upside down and everything like that. I can do it. I can suck it up, but it's just not a pleasant experience for me. So. But the water park, for some reason, like I guess when the water is involved, like if you're in a tube, even if you're like 1,000 feet in the air, they don't drop you down like straight down. They kind of like they want the ride to last, so it kind of goes like this. So even though you're 1,000 feet in the air, or 100 feet in the air, you're going at a little spin of a slow rate. So I went on 99% of the rides there, which I was shocked that I did, but I did do it. And my what I found out, Chris, is that I bought the kids the speed pass, which means you don't have to wait in the line, because I can't wait in lines. It was really for me. It wasn't for the kids. It was for me, because I can't wait in lines.
I would rather pay triple than wait in the line.
Yeah. That's exactly. It was an extra $40.
The worst is if you go to like a buffet, like a wedding or the Olympia or something, you have to wait. I will just do this. I won't eat at all. I just can't wait for food.
Yeah, you're like me. We have no patience. So I bought the speed pass. The problem with the speed pass is that it's so fast, Chris, that as soon as we get off the ride, they want to go again. And every ride, they need elevators on these rides. Every ride, you have to walk up 40 flights of steps. And I'm the one who's got to carry the big raft because, I can't let my 5-year-old carry a raft up the stairs, right? So, Chris, by the end of the day, I looked at my Apple Watch, 20,000 steps, 44 flights of stairs. You could 44, and believe me, I felt every one of those flights of steps. By the end, I was like in like a hallucinogenic state climbing these stairs because the park closes at 7. So at 6:40, I figured, all right, they're gonna kick us out already, right? Nuh-uh. There was no one there. They're like, you can go again. You can go again. We must have gone 10 times up this. I must have climbed 10 flights of stairs to get to the top of this thing. They're like, let's go. I got to catch my breath. I'm going to have a heart attack. I said, can you give me a second before we get into the raft and go down the thing again?
The kids love it. They love water slides, parks.
I went with my friend David and his wife, and he's about 10 years younger than me. And he today calls me up. This is 2 days later. Delayed muscle soreness, Chris, because he probably doesn't eat enough. No, he eats a lot, but he's like, I'm in so much pain. He said, I can't move. He said, because my calves hurt, my feet hurt. I said, I'm not that bad. I said, maybe I have better endurance than I think. So all the swimming I'm doing and the cardio I've been doing lately, I guess it paid off. And notice I'm lighter too. Because I'm lighter, I can move a little. If I was 250, I would be. They would have had to take me out of there in the ambulance, probably.
Oh yeah, listen, when you're 250 or more, right? Just walking around the mall is when it wins you.
You can't go to amusement parks when I was 300. I didn't want to do anything, Chris. People would be like, "Oh, let's go here, let's go there." I'm like, "That's all right. I'm going to go eat. And I'm going to go to a movie, and I'm going to go home, sleep." That was it. But that's you got to live that life.
Movie, right? When you go to a movie and not make it through, you fall asleep.
Yeah, sometimes. So what I would try to do is I would take a nap before I went.
So you wouldn't.
Yeah, so I wouldn't fall asleep. Yeah, otherwise you would. Yeah, I remember I went to a movie with it was Greg Kovacs. He was snoring so loud that they people like around him, but no one wanted to say anything because they were like in back. I said I had to wake him up. I'm like, Greg, you're snoring so loud, no one can hear the movie. I said.
You know what? You just mentioned Greg Kovacs, and I thought of him recently because I met him. Oh my gosh, it was really way back when there was no internet and very few people knew who he was, and I was hearing Greg Kovacs, and I heard that name. So I went up to Toronto. It was the dead of winter, and we were training at. There was a Weider gym there. It's called Arnold's gym. It was Arnold. Someone was ripping off. Do you know who tried to rip off Arnold's name for Arnold's gym?
Oh.
I don't want to say because I'm not sure for sure who it is, but it's odd that person would try to rip him off. It was called Arnold's Gym, and it was a great gym.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. But wasn't the guy named Arnold, though, too?
Yes. And I will say, Dave, that I was doing Smith machine shoulder presses.
Oh, he did a lot on there. I know that, yeah.
With 275, and I thought that was great. And I looked over, and I saw the biggest person ever doing 405 shoulder presses on the Smith like it was nothing. It was Greg Kovacs.
Oh, was it?
And he just looked crazy. I mean, I'd already been out to LA a million times. He just looked crazy.
I think he used to shoulder press on that Smith machine like 600 pounds or something like that.
How, Dave? He was doing 405, and it was like up, down, up, down, up, down, up.
No,
down.
I think he would go up to 6 plates on each side of that thing, which is insane when you think about it.
Yeah, he was a sight to behold. And I remember I didn't know his name, and I think I text Jay or something, and Jay's like, "Yeah, it's Kovacs." I already thought it was huge. Jay had a picture of him somewhere where when Jay was like in shape. Off season in shape, like two.
He looked small,
and he looked like a child next to Kovacs.
Yeah. I would walk around at 320, and I looked like I was nothing compared to him. That's how big he was. And he's because he's tall. So he had some insane strength in the gym. Yeah, people don't realize. He told a great story that there's a real. I see it. Someone posted it as a real where he went to this bench press meet when he was like 18 or 19 years old, something like that. and the biggest bench there was like 450, and it won the meet. And he was like, I'm doing that for reps at home already, you know, and like.
Dave, another true story at that time. So this was probably, I think I'll give you now I can date it. This must have been around 1995 or so, 1995, because Mike won the Arnold in 95. And that was the other thing I heard. And Mike in the gym, I always say, like, he was like the White Coleman. I mean, 675 deadlifts, 405 bent over rows like nothing. He could pause and, you know, hold it at his like breastbone and pause it and then go back and do like 10 reps easy with 405. And he told me he went up to Canada for that Muscle Mag, like there was a Muscle Mag opening, and he met Kovacs, and he told me I trained with the strongest guy I ever worked out with, and you know, I asked him who it was. He said it was Greg Kovacs. So I'd heard the name twice. Yeah. So for Mike, the strength, because Mike was insanely strong. For him to say, like, I just trained with someone who buried me in the gym. Not buried him, but, you know, strength-wise was far stronger than him. It was Kovacs.
I'll give you a good example. Like when I would go to the gym with him and work out, you know, like when you go there with someone like, let's say I went with Kevin Levrone, right? Who's known strong guy, but he's a top pro, great physique. Like him and I would squat, and we would be squatting the same, you know, we'd be doing the same plate, the same weight essentially. Because, you know, we were both big guys around the same size. When you go with Kovacs, it's like you just started working out and you're with the guy at the gym who's been training for like 10 years and he's so far ahead of you that you could only hope to be there one day. That's how far ahead he is. So like I'm doing my way, and then I got to add his plates on top of what I'm doing, because I'm not even close to what he's lifting, and I'm lifting a lot of weight. But compared to him, it was like, you know, he was like, you know, in a different league than I was in. You know.
So Dave, because we're on the same wavelength, where would he have made his fortune? Hollywood Stars, or maybe which show was that? Where would Greg Kovacs have made fortune?
He should have been in WWE is where he should have been.
Absolutely.
But you know what? He was so nuts about training and everything like that, and eating. I don't know if he was. I think he was too rigid. I think he was too lazy, to be honest with you, because he didn't like to do anything but work out, eat, and sleep. That was it. And you know what? He was making so much money that he was getting, like, to go to Europe to guest post. He'd ask for like 10 grand plus 2 first-class tickets for him and his wife. And they would give it to him because the Europeans were crazy. You know, he was like bigger than life, you know, I would say for a good 5-6 year period, he was making like some serious cash, you know. And when Muscle Tech was sponsoring him, he was making serious cash. After that, I don't know why they dropped him. I think they had an argument or something like that. And that's when he kind of fell off after that. Because I think he was used to all that money and he wasn't making that kind of cash anymore. And that kind of was, and then he had some injuries, and I don't know what happened after that. He just
when he competed on stage, he stood with the motorcycle stance, Dave. So
the motorcycle. Yeah. Lee Haney's not liking that motorcycle stance, huh?
Yeah, I don't know all the scuttlebutt, but
so what is he? Was Lee Haney criticized? By the way, Lee Haney contacted me. We're gonna get him on the show. I was supposed to get him on today, but he never responded. Maybe we'll get him on next week. What was he saying? He doesn't like the way the guys stand these days?
I don't know. I only saw, like, I've seen a couple like Instagram like posts, but I didn't listen to what he had to say, so it's hard to like comment on what he said if you don't really know what he said.
Right.
It alluded to the idea that guys this day and age stand like, you know, legs bent, arms up, and then there's a picture, of course, of Lunsford, who, you know,
he's king of that. Yeah.
He's the king of the I bought him a Harley Davidson with his prize money just so he could practice his stance. He doesn't have to ride a motorcycle, but I figured if he gets on the motorcycle and that wide stance where he bends his legs, it's like perfect for our form.
Well, you know, I think I understand what Lee is saying. I personally don't like when guys are too wide out to the side with their arms. I don't like when they're out like this. I see that a lot. I don't like when they bend their legs too much either. But you know what? I understand why certain guys do it because it's cheating a little bit. Like Flex Wheel, I think, had the greatest answer for how to pose your body. He says, find a way to hide your weaknesses and show your strengths. He goes, that was what I was a master at doing. He goes, you never see me in a weak pose for more than 1 second, he said. Well, I would be hitting transitions. I'd be moving.
Dave,
what?
If the handlebar king, Derek Lunsford, stood in the Harley stance at the Arnold or didn't, he was still winning it. And if he stood like he was on the Harley or not, or if he was at the ballet, like I guess Lee wants him to stand straight up and down at the Olympia, he still wouldn't have won the Olympia.
Right.
In other words, you know what? Judges are not really judging your stance other than to see condition, muscularity, detail, and to some degree flow or lack thereof flow or lack thereof condition.
No, I see what you're saying, but I also see I think that some people, it's like let's forget men for a second. Let's go to the women. You know, the bikini girls and even some of the wellness girls, when they lean over too much and they open their legs too wide from the back when they're standing from the back. I mean,
Audience love it.
Yeah, the audience love it. I'm sure the judges don't mind either. They're getting like a free gynecological exam with these girls. And I understand why they do it. When they lean over more, the skin on their rear end kind of stretches out, so it doesn't. If they have a little wrinkle there, it disappears. But it just looks inappropriate. It looks like you're trying too hard. And I think that's what Haney means. Not that Derek looks bad. It looks like he's trying too hard, and he doesn't need to try that hard because he's got such a great physique anyway. That, you know, like Arnold said, show the physique. Don't hide away when you pose. It's the same thing. When you're standing, don't overdo it. It's almost like you're trying to overcompensate for something that's not there when he already has everything that's there. He's clearly, you know, a Mr. Olympia, you know, guy.
Well,
so I think that he might overdo it is what Haney was implicating. And in that sense, I do agree with Lee. I think some of these guys overdo it and they look a little weird on stage when they do that.
You can ask Lee, so I don't want to put words into his mouth. Out of respect for his 8 titles.
Yes. We'll ask him. We'll get him on the show next week. So let's see what else we got going on here. Sass wins 2 in a row. Let's talk about that. He's got to be. Isn't it funny? 4 shows the guy does and can't get the qualification for the Olympia. Now he's number 5. He wins, and he said, "I might as well do number 6 too." A lot of guys would have stopped, right? He does number 6, wins that. What's his? We were supposed to get him on the show, but what's his mindset now, Chris? He's got to be feeling pretty good about himself.
He feels great. He feels great. He's got. It's a great question, and yes, you should have him on the show because he has a good mindset. He has a mindset of a. Does that make sense, Dave? A 40-year-old over, like when I first started coaching him, he was 29. Does that? You know what I mean? So, you know, a 29-year-old would get second in 2 shows and shut it down for the year.
Yeah.
You know, a 40-year-old, you'd say like, you know, I'm 40. How long can I do this? And I'm right there.
Right.
So I'm going to the next show, which he went to, and the next show, which he went to. So he did 4 shows where he didn't get the qualification. He stuck with it. He got the qualification in Canada at the Super Show, and then took off to Spain.
It almost looks like Angel Calderon, who come in a second here. He looks like he's kind of pissed off. Like he feels he should have won the show. I don't know if I'm putting words into his mouth. It's not there, but he looks a little disturbed, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he had the, you know, he's in Spain. He's from Spain, so you know, you have all your fans there saying, "I'm sure you got it, you got it, you got it. This is the best you've ever looked."
Maybe that's what
ever looked. But you know, he's, you know, not getting by Sass in the show.
No, Sass is a lot bigger than he is too, and the conditioning is the same. So, I mean, it's wonderful that he can do an open show and place that high. I mean, I think that's definitely a feather in his cap. But
well, you know what this show does, Dave, is this show. You know, it makes me think of the Olympia because everyone's asking me, like, you know, who's going to win the Olympia, and I'm like, I don't know, and that's a true statement. I don't know. I wish I could say, you know, someone I coach, but I don't know that.
Right.
And Angel could not even win the 212 New York Pro.
Right.
He didn't win it. He
That's true.
got second in New York in a 212 show, and then he does an open show and he presses Sass, in certain poses. I thought Angel was better in the side chest.
Yeah.
He's very comparable in the front lat spread. Surprisingly comparable, very comparable, the most muscular. So imagine that here's the guy who can't win the New York Pro 212, and a few weeks later is pressing someone like Sass. It just goes to show you, at the Olympia, it's a game of inches. You have the people we keep talking about, and everyone's competitive. If somebody's a little off, because he wasn't at his best in New York, but here he was at his all-time best. And this shape in New York, he would have crushed it.
Right.
Unless the other thing is that in New York, he had to struggle to make the weight, and here, he didn't, and it allowed.
Yeah, that's true. That's a definite.
216, and the difference between 216 and 212 is monumental for some people.
Yeah, I agree with that. Look, you know what? This wasn't a fucking hard show. I mean, it goes back to what I've been saying, for the last, I don't know how many years now we were saying, why don't more people do some of these European shows? It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why they're not doing it. We got a show next week, Chris, in Dubai.
It's probably it's probably just as comparable to travel to Spain than it is to go to, get a hotel in Pittsburgh or Chicago or,
5 hours from New York. It's not really that bad. I mean, come on.
Maybe the plane ticket might be, instead of $500, $200, but you might make it up on the hotel. And if it was you, Dave, you could get those in Spain. You bring back those Winstrol 10,000.
Zambon Winstrol. Yeah.
You'd make $100,000.
Yeah. It's funny. I went into the pharmacy in Walmart pharmacy the other day. I wanted to get a box of insulin syringes because I like to use for glutathione. I like to use this 27 gauge insulin syringe. I don't know if you've seen it. It just draws up much easier because I'm doing a full CC, I don't need to use the 30 gauge. It takes forever. So I go in there. They're like, you would have thought that I was trying to rob the place. They looked at me like I had 10 heads. Now, I don't know if I think they just changed the law or something like that. In Florida, you can buy syringes. It was completely legal. So I said, you know what, screw it. I'll just go on Amazon and buy a box. So I always buy it on Amazon. You can't, now they won't ship to Florida and Amazon. So I don't know if they must have changed the law in Florida. Before you could order whatever you wanted. It didn't matter. Now you can't really get syringes.
Maybe Dave, you can, let me put a plug in for Portland, Maine, where my real estate values are tanking. If you're a drug addict, bring in one syringe to the city. They give you 100 clean syringes back.
Oh, really? I gotta go. But you got to be a drug addict though to do that. Is that what it is?
I don't know if there's a loophole. Maybe I should go in. It'll be my first YouTube. I'll start my YouTube station.
Your first good reel. Yeah.
I'll go in there, and I'll find one needle because they're everywhere. Everywhere you go, you see needles.
Oh, really? There's that many drug addicts, huh?
Insane.
There's nothing to do up there.
Bring in 10 needles, and I'll say I'd like 1,000, and then I can mail them out to people who need them for
There you go. I don't know. They must. I felt like a criminal. I don't know why, but it's weird because usually I just go in and get whatever I want. Now all of a sudden, like they're like, well, what do you need it for? I said, well, what does it matter? I said, I didn't know you I didn't know you needed an explanation as to why you want a box of syringes. I said, she's like, well, you need a prescription. I said, since when? She's like, well, you can buy, I can sell you a box of insulin syringes. I said, oh, well,
what's the difference?
I want an insulin syringe. I just want a 27 gauge insulin syringe. Yeah. She's like, no, that's not an insulin syringe. I'm like, well, I said, it's the same. It measures insulin units. I said, what would you call a 27 gauge syringe that looks exactly like an insulin syringe?
See, Dave, why don't you say this would have been a good rant at the store?
Well, I didn't want them to kick me out of the store because I'm in there all the time. So I didn't want to start a trouble. And I had my kids with me. I'm like, let me ask you a question. I said, what differentiate, like, what would can you show me a box of insulin syringes? So she brings out the box. I said, okay. So it's got the same orange cap on it. It's a 1 cc. It's a continuous thing. You can't change the heads or anything like that. And it's 30 gauge. Is it the 30 gauge that defines it as an insulin syringe to you versus the 27? Is that where we're not communicating? She's like, this is an insulin syringe. I said, so it's the 30 gauge.
Get it?
I said, you know what the gauge measures how thick the needle is. She's like, who would use a 27 gauge to take an insulin shot? I said,
did she give it to you? We want to know, did she give it to you?
I said, well, it works. I didn't want the 30 gauge because Titan Medical sends me the 30 gauge. I wanted a 27 gauge. And so she had the things, but she wouldn't sell it to me without a prescription. But my point was, you'll sell me a box of 30 gauge insulin syringes, but you won't sell me a box of 27 gauge insulin syringes. It's the same thing. It still says insulin syringe on there. So she's like, you're wrong. I said, all right, bring the 27 gauge box out. She's like, I don't know why we're doing this. I said, please just humor me here. She brings the box out. I said, can you read what it says in the box? It says 27 gauge. She's like, yeah, it says 27 gauge G. It said, yeah, read the next word. It says insulin, doesn't it? She's like, I don't know why it says it on here. I said, because it's an insulin syringe. It doesn't matter. It's the syringe that makes it unique. It's not the tip, I said.
Yeah.
She still wouldn't sell it to me, even though I proved to her that it was still an insulin.
Okay, so I'll go back to I'll go tomorrow and pick up the.
I got to go find some dirty needles and turn them in Maine. That's the
100 to
solution. Yeah, Lee, I got to go. Lee's right. I got to go to the veterinarian. The vet will give me insulin syringes, 27 gauges, but not the pharmacy where I want to actually pay for them. You know. By the way, Lee, you got to come to the U.S. Next time you come to the U.S., I got to send you to to one of the water parks with my kids because Lee will go on any ride. You know, Lee is like, Lee's looking for people to go on rides with. My kids are fearless. They'll go on every ride with Lee. It doesn't matter.
I went on the Troy Alves is up in Maine, staying at my place.
Oh, he is? What is he doing up there?
Yeah, and he came to Maine to stay with me a couple times before shows.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I know, but what about now? Why is he there now?
Well, when he came, he told me we have this little condo on the beach, and maybe 50 yards from the condominium is like a beachside amusement park.
Oh.
Troy said, we're talking like 2010. He said, when I have kids, I'm going to bring them back here and I'm going to stay at your place and I'm going to bring them on all these rides and hang out and eat junk food and cotton candy and all that stuff when I'm no longer bodybuilding. And he came last year, same exact time last year. He's here for a week. Do
they give prizes at the thing if you?
They have all those. Yeah,
the tickets.
It's like Coney Island. It's like, you know what I mean?
Chris, I got it. I'm gonna.
Dave, Troy's the only guest ever that I have to say, Troy, you lose that key, call a locksmith. I know how Troy is. Just like, oh, just had it here a minute ago.
Yeah.
I think he got locked in. Last year, I went down to visit him. And when I got there, he said, oh, good thing you came to visit today. I'm like, what? I'm thinking like the kids must have like ruined the inside of the thing. He said, no, we locked ourselves out.
Oh, no. Oh, shit.
So he didn't lose the key, knew where it was, but it was inside.
Because I took the kids, speaking of amusement, I took the kids to the Dave & Buster's. Have you ever gone to Dave & Buster's? So my kids, we've been conquering all the like video game places, and my son hits the jackpot in all these places. Like you spin the wheel, and he won 2,500 tickets in one place. I don't know. So we go to the Dave & Buster's, and I buy them all cards, and I buy myself a little card too, so I can, because they like when I play the games with them. You know, it's like, and I figure whatever tickets I win, I'll just give to them so they can buy those cheap ass shit that they give away in the
and like $500, and you get like a little a
little mic. Yeah. You get this. You get a little crystal here. Yeah. So I'm playing, Chris, and I like to play the ones with. It's basically gambling for kids. Okay, so I play they're really slot machines, but they're really not slot. You just spin the wheel, and it's you can get anywhere from like 5 tickets to 1,000 tickets. If you hit the jackpot. So I spin I just sit there all day and play that thing because I was hitting 1,000. I must have hit 6 or 7. It got to the point where I'm like, I know I'm going to hit 1,000 again. My son said, you're not going to hit it again. And it would land on it. I said, it must be like someone's giving me a Father's Day gift. They said, luckily you guys can benefit from this. I won 8,000 tickets, Chris. I think that might be a record. And
what, they cash them in for little toys?
They cashed them in. This is what they 8,000 tickets. That's what they got this. It cost me $600 in buying them the cards. But they got this.
Yeah.
And there was a couple tickets left, 500 tickets left. I got a Diet Coke out of the next 500 that was left. But and this thumbtack right here was about 65 tickets right here. It's the greatest scam of all time. Even the guy at the place, they had, what they had? They had a, the claw machine.
Yeah.
They had a human claw machine. For $15, they strap the kids in and they lift them up, hoist them up. I got a video on my Instagram. I'll put it up for people who haven't seen it. They hoist the kids up there. It was worth the $15 just to take the video. They had to do it because they saw all the other kids doing it. They had to do it. Hold on. Funny shit. Can't make this stuff up. All right. That was the place. They won. That's the crap they won. They won like surfboards and blow up surfboards and bananas. There's Shayla, my little one, 5 years old. the human claw machine, Chris. How funny is that? I know Lee's watching this and saying, man, he definitely would have done it if he was there. No doubt. He would have fit right in that little harness thing right there.
Can you imagine, Dave, when you were little, if they had like a Dave and Buster's like that or something?
Oh my God. Yeah, but my father, they would never have taken us there. They would have been too cheap. They never would have spent
that.
That's why I overspend on them there, because I know that my parents would never have taken us there.
That's the trap, Dave. That's like when my kids were little, we'd go to like the movies and we'd buy like 400 candy bars because my mother would like make us take an apple to the movies, and we only go to the movies like twice a year. Chris,
but we used to. My parents would drop us off, my friends and I off. It was like $2.50 for the matinee, and we would first go to the candy store and we would buy like whatever candy we wanted because it was only it was 50 cents a piece or whatever it was, 25 cents a bar. And we would load up, and they would give us a bag with the soda in there or something like that, and they'd send us to the movie theater with no money. So that you had it because we had all our own food. They wouldn't let me buy a popcorn, nothing there because it was too expensive.
Same boat.
I told you, Lee loves the claw machine. I knew he did. And you know what the funny thing was? The candy they sent us there with was actually better than the movie candy, but for some reason, the movie candy and the movie popcorn always tasted better. I don't know why.
The whole idea of you get to go there and buy something and just you got to have the entire experience.
That's right. You guys are, yeah. So yeah, that was yesterday. We had fun on Father's Day. What did you guys do on Father's Day?
Yesterday, I ended up driving Fareed to Vermont because he has got
college.
Yeah, he had to move in yesterday. So I drove up there 4.5 hours, dropped him off, came back 4.5 hours.
Why is he starting so early?
Well, they don't have enough housing for juniors and seniors. He's going to be a junior.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to get your own like off-campus place to live, an apartment.
Oh, okay.
And I've been trying to help him find an apartment, and it's like impossible because there's a lack of places available. I'm
surprised you haven't bought a place, like an investment place to rent to the college kids.
I thought of it yesterday when I dropped them off. I said, hey, I could figure it out, get it for you. I exactly, Dave, what I thought when I dropped them off. But anyways,
yeah, because it's guaranteed money. They got to live someplace. These kids.
100%. And so I brought him up there. So we had to pack all his bodybuilding stuff and his clothes. So.
Oh, that's right. So yeah, because he's got the team nationals coming up in a
few weeks. Now I'm worried. Like he sent me pictures today, and I'm like, oh, this is not the way you look in real life. Like I know what he looks like, and pictures he looks like he's 40 weeks out. So I said, we have to get the lighting down, or you're going to, I told him you could pull a J, and a J was, when Jay was 19, imagine Dave prepping for the teen nationals, he'd get in his car and he'd show up at my house at no later than 7:30 on a 3-hour drive. So that means he left his house at 4:30 and he'd eat one meal and then he'd drive back. So he had
He spent, how long did he spend in the house? 20 minutes?
go through some poses in my kitchen, eat a meal, and take off.
That's crazy.
He was working too, so part of it was he'd have to get, you know, Jay, he had 1,000 things going on. He'd have to get back to the job, and he'd do it. He was doing like, I think, a double split in those days anyway. Like that would be meal 1 and at meal 2. You know, he was always doing something.
He was, you know,
he's the exact same. The only thing that's happened is like time went by. There's no difference. Jay is the same at 19 as he is at 50. Same regimen, same vision, same goals, same strict, same, you know, soldier-like. He was doing that at 19.
It's crazy that you know, that he you know, it is, I think what you do early in life sets really the tone for, you know, what you do later in life. It's just, it's so true. I mean, I don't care what people say.
Well, I mean, that's bodybuilding or sports at a young age is a great template for going forward, because if you can get into any sport that's really regimented and makes you requires discipline, when you get done, everything's easy. That's why you want to laugh, Dave? God, it seems like yesterday, man.
Look at Jay.
Story.
He's pretty big there too, for a teenager.
Yeah. He called me and said, I won my class. I didn't win the overall. I'm like, who beat you? And he said, oh, some kid. And I said, how could he be? You must have, they didn't think your legs were crazy? You didn't have, he said, no, his legs were better than mine. I'm like, who? It was Branch Warren.
There he is, Branch Warren.
It's like when Dave, I told you when I prepped Cormier for when he did that natural show.
Yeah.
It did the pose down at the Nationals, and he left Gold's Venice, and I blew his ego up. I said, nobody's beating you. You're going to the World Championships and gonna win. And I was stunned when he called me and he said, I got second. I thought it was a crank fake call. Because and Chris was not natural the entire year, but Chris was natural to the point that he could for sure have passed a drug test.
Right.
And was smaller than he was a few months later when he competed at like the USA or something. He just wanted a pro card, and he thought like,
right.
You know, it's not like he was natural training for the USA, but he wasn't on a lot of things. And so he decided, you know, I'll just go off, and, you know, whatever, might have been like 5 months later, I'll do this show where they're picking the winner to go to the World Championships, and I'll get my pro card that way. And like Jay, you know, he called me and he said, I got second. I'm like, it's an impossible. Who on earth? He said, I don't know, some kid from Texas with big arms. It was Coleman.
It's crazy. We hear so many stories like that, though. You know,
I mean, nobody even knew Coleman. No, it was an impossibility to know Coleman.
Chris, I told you the story. This is not even on the same level as that, but when I went to the Junior USA in 1994, it was my first national show, and I'm like, well, actually, it was the week before I went to I had won the Metropolitans heavyweight class. I went to the Suburban Championships in Jersey. There was John Kemper's show the week after that. Doug Wentz is like, he pulled a Bob. He's like, just let's throw some tan on. Let's just go. You're in shape. I said, all right. We go there. I'm thinking, there's no one's going to beat me at this show. And I'm backstage, and I see Doug's got like this worried look on his face. I said, Doug, what's the matter? He goes, yeah, I know that kid. I competed at like Teen Nationals or something like that, Teen America with him, some shit like that. He's good. You know, he's I haven't seen him in a while. I said, you think he can beat me? Backstage, he looked like he was smooth as could be. He's like, I don't know. He goes, so I get on stage. We get after pre-judging. I said, so what do you think? He goes, well, it's between you and him. I said, well, yeah. I said, do you think I got him? He said, well, he looks pretty good under the lights. I said, he looks smooth backstage though. I was shredded. I wasn't huge. I was only about 228 at the time. And Derek Whitsett wins the heavyweight class. I see him the next week at the Junior USA. He wins the Junior USA overall. And then 6 months later, and this is 94, he drops down to light heavyweight. I don't even know how he made the weight. And he wins the light heavyweight class. Yeah, I think he beat Rod Ketchens, who was like at the time was the favorite. And that was the year DeMeo won the overall. And he got his pro card.
That's right. I beat him at the Team USA.
He probably was training for a week.
No, are you kidding? Dave, so Bob Gruskin tells me there's no one going to be.
Yeah, he rest in peace, by the way. Derek's no longer with us.
But I was at Bob Gruskin's house, and Bob told me no one's going to beat you at the show. Bob never says that, right?
Right.
He gets a call from John Kemper.
Right.
And John Kemper wants to put Derek in the Team USA.
Oh, no.
And, Bob did everything that he could possibly do to discourage John Kemper.
Want to try to talk him out of it?
Kemper and Derek were training partners.
Oh.
It was like a kid all the way on. So,
yeah.
So we get to the show, and some people can't hide their true feelings, and they're just brutal honest.
Yeah.
And backstage, and Bob Gruskin's backstage, and Derek Whitsett takes his clothes off, and Bob looked like he had seen a ghost.
Rudy, you're right. My whole life is about second places, but it's all right. It's better than last place.
You're the Sasserati of New York.
Yeah. Yeah. Derek had this genetics. When he hit shots, things happened to his physique that weren't there before he hit the shot. So if he was standing around, you would never know all this stuff existed until he actually flexed. He
had one of the best V-tapers ever from behind.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When he would stand, he would hold his hands out. He stood like a motorcycle guy, right?
And he had Kai muscle where even when he wasn't in condition, if he flexed it, everything was striated.
Yeah, it was crazy genetics. He had crazy. I think he had no money. I think that was the problem, Chris. I think he was
but he had no money because Bob told me that too. Actually, I beat him, and Bob told me the next day, straight out, you'll never beat this kid again.
Is that what he said? Holy shit.
That's Bob, you'll never beat this kid again. And
so he must have told. So Doug definitely knew who he was. So that's why Doug got nervous when he saw him backstage. He knew.
I think it was either the T Nationals or the T Nationals or the Teen Mr. America or something was 6 weeks later, and I had planned to do that, and Bob told me Derek was going to do it, and he said you won't beat him. He says if he loses 3 pounds, 5 pounds, whatever, he'll kill him, and that's exactly what happened.
Wow.
Derek, whatever show that was, and demolished the show.
But you can at least say you beat him once, so that's
yeah. That's why I love to say, I beat Derek Whitsett.
It's like Martin Fitzwater can go around telling people he beat Chris Bumstead, right?
Yeah.
So, hey, look,
there's
always anyone can lose a show at any time. Remember that. I always tell people.
Unfortunately, that is damn true.
Yeah. I remember Tom Prince. I don't remember. He was predicted to win. I don't know if it was a Nationals or USA. He showed up and he looked hard. I heard he was in withdrawal from something, but he was horrible. He was 14th or something, or 10th or 12th. I was yes, I at least I beat Tom Prince, right? All the guys are saying they beat Tom Prince, but he was horrible, and then he came back the next show and turned pro. But it was anyone can have a bad show. It's just the way it goes. And you have to keep coming back. The key is to get back on stage and compete. A lot of people quit, if they don't look their best.
Tom came to Maine and stayed with me for a month.
Oh, that's right. You did mention that to me. How did that arrangement happen?
Same person who hooked me up with Mike Francois was it Luzwick or was it Marty Demersion? One of the two. But he was when he came up, he was in a off season. He was getting ready for the Florida, which he won, or he won his class. Yeah, he won his class because he wanted to kill me because he didn't win the overall.
Oh, it was your fault?
No, I thought like a lot of people, I brought him down too far, which might have been true. But he came in like diced and sliced, as Milos would say. But
yeah,
he was gigantic.
Was that 95?
Early, it was 90, might have been 93.
Oh, see, I didn't know. I never heard about him. And then I went to the Nationals in 95 because Doug was doing that show. And that's the one Don Long won. And I remember the first call out, Tom wasn't even in the first call out. And then John Kemper comes back in. John Kemper said, I want to see another call out. And he wanted to see Tom Prince in that call out. So they added him because that's when Kemper still had, he had power and, they respect with all those guys. And all of a sudden, Tom's standing next to Don Long now. And they're like, who's going to win the show? And so Tom went from not making the top 5 to being, second place there. And I think a lot of people could have made a case for him actually winning that show. He looked really good at that show.
Yeah, he looked great at that show. Don looked great at that show.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was like a great look for Don.
Yeah.
And Tom, I know exactly what Tom looked. Tom looked great.
I was like, how like when I don't know if you guys who watch the show, if you do this, but whenever I would compete, I always like try to figure out who can beat me, who's the guys that I have to worry about, right? So you have a short list in your head, assuming you're good, of who can beat you, and Tom wasn't on my list because I didn't know who Tom was. And I go to that show and I'm like, well, I got to add another guy to the list, because of people we have to beat now. And I got to actually compete against Tom in the 96 Nationals. It was actually a few shows, but definitely it was the USA first with Titus and him. And then the Nationals when Jay won.
Yeah.
And Tom was second. And Orville Burke was third. I was fourth. So, Tom was a freak. He had great genetics. I think, maybe mentally he wasn't the best, but he was genetically really, really gifted,
Yeah, he was big,
super wide structure, big freaking thick
arms,
adductors. Yeah, hamstrings.
A lot of width.
Glutes. He was a little awkward on stage with presentation, but he was put together like a brick shithouse, that kid. Yeah, man, he could have gone long. He could have gone far if he had the right mindset, I think. But he was a former swimmer. A lot of endurance athletes who went on to become bodybuilders become really good. And like I said, I know I've floated this theory out there before, but I think that people who go from endurance sports to bodybuilding, it's like some kind of priming of their body. Like they just respond better. They get like more grainy looking. The muscle, I'm convinced that there's like a hyperplasia going on of the muscle cells when you put them in oxygen debt, but you don't really notice it in endurance sports because the muscles don't get bigger. But then when you go to switch to like a bodybuilding type, where hypertrophy is paramount, right? Because you have more muscle, nuclei there, the cells you have more potential to get bigger. So it's like almost like bodybuilders should first go from endurance sports and for like 5 years, and then you switch them into bodybuilding. They'd probably be better for that. Tom was a swimmer, so his upper body and his legs improved. Whereas if you saw it, and with me, I noticed my legs were hyper responders more so than my upper body, probably because running, you're pumping your arms, but you're really using a lot more leg.
Yeah, well, I think he was a sprinter though.
He did both. Oh, so there you go.
He did some, I think, 200 individual medley or.
I know it. Yeah. Oh, you're talking about swimming sprinter. Yeah, but that's. But you still train, Chris, like for endurance. He probably swam, 40 minutes a day, 50 minutes a day, just straight. That's endurance right there. I swim in the pool at night. I want to have man, do I freaking get winded. But I've worked up to I do like 40 laps, but I do it in stage. I do like interval training. I do like I'll do like 8 laps. I take the rest. I do 8 laps.
It does 8 laps, checks his emails and text messages.
No, I don't. But I do check my pulse on my watch, making sure I'm not going through the roof on the pulse. Yeah, if you check I don't know how guys do that, and start when you start checking emails in the middle of a workout, you're through. You're done. The only time I'll do that is if I'm sitting doing like pedaling a stationary bike or something like that. I can check stuff like that. Then it doesn't matter. So, but yeah, you want to get a good leg workout though, go to those water parks, Chris, and climb those stairs up to the top of those podiums, those platforms.
The last time I went to Dave, you hit the nail on the head. Last time I went was last August on like the hottest day of the year. I took would have been 10-year-old and his friend, and we went on endlessly. And like I was dead by the end of the day. Felt like I walked 20 miles. Yeah.
Like there's these people, Chris, in the bodybuilding world that think that if you squeeze your glutes and you get on the Stairmaster, you're gonna bring your glutes in better. They don't think it has anything to do with diet. They think it has to do with working out.
You mean that doesn't work?
What we should do is, if you have a client, Chris, who can't get glutes, send them to like these water parks for the day, and we'll do a controlled experiment. We'll have one guy who just eats low carbs, and we'll have one guy who go to the park. You can get the free eat pass. I have the free eat pass, Chris. It means you can go to any of the restaurants in the park as part of your package. It's like $40. Because if you go get a hamburger, that'll cost you $100 in those water parks. Chris, we had 2 meals there, and I couldn't eat another meal there. The food there's so much grease on the food. It was even me with my metabolism after 2 burgers and fries, I wanted to throw up.
The grease is probably from April. They haven't even changed it.
I couldn't eat. I literally, my blood sugar was 0 when we were leaving the park at 7:00. I said, we got to go. I got to get a good dinner. I took the kids to eat like Japanese food. I couldn't eat another burger, another chicken. What is it? Those chicken tenders,
chicken
French fries.
Chicken, yeah.
Oh my God! I was ready for. I couldn't do it again. I'm sure I would have burned through it because we burned 1 million calories. I couldn't do it. I don't even know what they put in that. They make McDonald's meals seem healthy, whatever they serve at those parks. It's horrible. Disney's worse. Disney's probably worse. Disney has better food choices, but you'll spend $1,000 on food in Disney. But Lee, Steve would go to water parks to watch guys climb the stairs for research. I love you, Lee. You're hysterical. No, but seriously, if you have a glute problem, I'm going to send one group of people. We'll do a controlled experiment. 5 guys go to the water park, and they got to walk a minimum of 40 flights of steps for the day, 20,000 steps total, like I did. And just let them go on all the water slides. And believe me, they'll get the money. So I'll send my kids with them. They'll get plenty of exercise. And then the other group, we put on low carbs, Chris, and we just put them on a stationary bike and just, something like a recumbent bike, nice and low intensity exercise. And let's see who gets leaner. Okay.
Well, you know what? It goes back to Bob Gruskin always used to say, it's been on my mind a lot lately because a photo of me and my son showed up. Did I send it to you in front of his house?
No. Oh, yeah, you did send it to me. Yes.
And he said, he always used to say, like, you got to burn the fat.
Yeah.
And you know what? For everything that he knew, he would say it would always be stop eating, meaning eat a lot less, or you got to expend more. You got to do cardio. But he would never get into never crossed his mind about this certain exercise is going to peel down your glutes. Not that glutes were important back then, but.
Every time I've ever spoken to Doug or Gruskin himself directly, Doug and Bob delivered always the same message: stop eating so much. They really felt that bodybuilders ate too much. At least that's the message I got from Bob. Like, you don't eat that much food,
Yeah,
much food.
Often out of his mouth is you don't. That was a repetitive statement. Bodybuilders don't need that much food.
I learned that from him. So I take away a lot of food from the people I help. Because what happens is, you go from 250 down to 200. You don't need the same amount of food you were when you were 250 anymore when you're 200. And I think a lot of guys forget sometimes to reduce the food if they're not losing weight. If you're losing weight, you don't have to. But I'm saying if you're not losing weight, you have to reduce the food, right? I mean, it's just logical. And they think they're going to lose muscle, these guys and women. Same way. Women don't lose muscle. By the way, I don't know if I know you've worked with a couple of women over the years. I've never seen a woman lose muscle. You can give them just air. You're not going to eat today. We're just going to give you air. And they do not lose muscle. I don't know what it is. There's some kind of evolutionary preservation mechanism in there, probably from years of like the cave women not having food and they have to conserve energy for the childbearing. Women don't lose muscle. No. They only burn stored body fat. They do not lose muscle. Even if you don't feed them, they don't lose muscle.
Yeah, I've never, not that I've prepped many women, but I've never used the word, you look flat today.
No. Yeah, and they don't get flat either. You're right. That's exactly. Yep. Oh my God. Lee, did they finally book those flights? Look at Lee. What did Lee say? That's why the Nigerians are good bodybuilders. Not much food on the Serengeti being chased by lions. All they eat is protein, Lee. They don't eat any carbs. That's why that's why a lot of those Nigerian bodybuilders become diabetic later in life, because they're not used to eating carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates, but they're used to eating fat and protein. That's that's a known fact. A lot of African American people have diabetes. They call it the sugar, right, Chris?
Yeah.
And it's because they're not good carbohydrate metabolizers, because that's not how they evolved. They evolved eating, game, wild game, which is, lions and tiger, whatever they hunted on the elk, I don't know what was running around there. So same thing with the Eskimos. They found that not the Eskimos, the Inuit Indians, which are like by the Arctic Circle or something like that. Those Indians, there's no carbs up there. All they eat is like seals and fish and fatty fishes. Their fat content of their diet is crazy. They basically eat a ketogenic diet. And when they started eating refined carbs, because they came in contact with modern civilization, they all were getting type 2 diabetes from it. They couldn't handle the carbs.
Once they came in contact with modern civilization, their health went torpedoed into
right in the toilet.
We are much more than you. Try these refined foods so that you can kill yourself.
See, a lot of people say, Chris, oh yeah, but the caveman's average lifespan was only 35 years back then. Yeah, because they would get killed by like a wild cat or something like that. There were predators back then that they would get killed. They wouldn't die of like heart disease back then, or they'd get an infection and they would die, or they would get a rotten tooth in their mouth and they would
exactly.
But no one had heart disease or cancer because they were eating what they were supposed to eat. So it's a trade-off. If you want to live a long time and you want to have good modern civilization, you gotta balance that with a decent diet. So my suggestion is, don't do what I did, Chris. I bought the kids a cotton candy machine. They were hawking me, drive me crazy for this cotton candy machine. We were in the store. I said, fine, let's buy it. And we were making the cotton candy. You swirl the thing around and it's like this cottony stuff. And I don't eat sugar. Me, I don't eat that crap. But I'm like, let me try it. They're gobbling it down, right? they're like bouncing off the ceiling at this point. I'm like, and I had a couple of. I said, you know what? I forgot how good cotton candy is. It actually tastes pretty good.
You were the worst, Dave, and so am I, because this is where you get that from. What you already alluded to earlier. You're the kid. Someone would take you to the circus, and you would ask your parents for cotton candy, and they'd say, "No, it's $1." So here you are, 45 years later, and you buy the entire cotton candy machine for your kids.
Yeah, because that you or I would have wanted that machine, and our parents would have smacked the shit out of us probably. To not even, you couldn't even think about wanting the machine.
No, you wouldn't think about asking for the $1 to get the candy, because you knew the answer.
Oh my God! That it's what it is. It wasn't even the cotton candy. It's the process of making the cotton candy that the kids were like. they were like so enamored with this whole process. Like it didn't even matter. They didn't even keep, my son didn't even eat the cotton candy. He was eating a few pieces. He liked the whole idea of the machine spinning around and all that stuff, you know. So it's the experience, it's the cotton candy experience that's more valuable than the actual cotton candy itself. And that's that as you know, as I become, you know, as my parenting, as my kids get older, I should say, I start to learn more about parenting, and it's the experiences that is the important thing. It's not necessarily what you do; it's just the whole experience of it. So,
kids just want to be listened to.
Yeah. So Chris, what you and I do is we do everything that our parents wouldn't let us do.
Yeah, no, that's what we do.
that's and it's the little things. You can, when my kids were kids, you didn't have to even buy them a toy. You just give them a box to play with, you know. My father would be like, "Get out of that box! You're gonna hurt yourself in that box."
I feel guilty, like sometimes, like when it snows and the guy comes to like take care of my snow.
Right.
Like father would get us out at 8 a.m. to go hand shovel the.
Oh yeah.
There's probably a lesson that I learned from it. My lesson that I was learning, he probably thought was hard work. My lesson was, there's no way I'm ever doing this when I grow up.
Chris, I wanted to shovel everyone on the block. I would shovel until I couldn't even move, and then it was dark out because I loved the money. I said the most bang, I'm thinking as a kid, the most bang for your buck. The people will be willing to give you the most money. Because I delivered newspapers, I raked leaves, but I cleaned people's cars. The most bang for your buck was shoveling snow because everyone had to get out of the house to go to work.
Dave.
So I would pray for snow. I would just every day I would be, please snow. It wasn't that I wanted to stay home from school. I wanted to shovel so that I could make all that money because you get $20 at a time for shoveling a walk. You do 5 walks, that's $100. Where does a kid that age make $100? At least not back in the 1980s that you couldn't do that. So
it was in where I grew up. Kids would go. It was like competitive.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We would be battling the other kids. Nowadays, try to find a kid to shovel your walk. You can give them $100, they won't do it.
No.
It's unbelievable. When my father, right before we brought my father to Florida, they had a snowstorm there, and I said, Dad, who do you hire to do the walk? He goes, there's no kids. There's adults walking around shoveling snow. I'm like, what?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, these adults come around with snow blowers and they're trying. It's like the adults realize there's more money in snow blowing and clearing people's walks than there is in going to work and working a real job.
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny. The kids are not doing it anymore. They got regular adults doing it now. So.
No, they're buying Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Courses. Telling courses how to be an influencer.
That's a good idea, Chris. Shovel snow and make your snow cones with the shovel, the stuff. That's another thing. Did you ever buy the Snoopy snow cone machine?
No, but the one time I had an ingenious idea of making snow cones with food coloring and sugar. Me and my son, we had to be like 8 and 7. We got so violently sick from eating the snow.
Oh, because the sugar, you probably put too much on there, right?
No, we got sick from the snow. The snow was probably like, who knows?
Oh, it was dirty. Never eat yellow snow, Chris, right?
The weather pattern probably blew him back, from the west, like acid rain had turned into like snow. And
if anyone knows anything about snow, you don't eat yellow snow, right?
Yeah.
You know what yellow snow is?
Of course.
Okay.
Dog snow.
The dogs pee on the snow. So so I bought a Snoopy snow cone machine years ago for the kids. This is before Logan and Aria were kids, really young. It's so hard to crank the freaking thing because it's not automatic. It's like a hand crank, and it takes the ice cubes and it shreds them. But you'll blow your rotator cuff out trying to hook to do the thing and get enough ice. They're like, we need more. But I can't. I'm gonna have to get surgery on my shoulder if I do this. If I crank this thing anymore.
They don't have the upgraded one for the wealthier parents who want to spend
They still sell the same Snoopy one. It's like from 1970. It hasn't changed. You think they would have upgraded the engineering of the thing and put a little bit of an electric motor on there at least to shave the ice for you.
Push button, like cappuccino machine. Just push.
Oh my God. This would be snow cone machine. This, all right, let's finish up. Tell one Jay Cutler story. The guy wants to hear the story again about the Jay digging the ditch when he was 10 years old.
Oh, digging the ditch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
His father would let him quit.
Yeah, they had a
tell the story.
They have foundation company, concrete foundation. It tells you possibly, and I think Jay may agree with this, everything that you need to know about Jay Cutler. That he had a bunch of brothers and they were digging ditches and to lay foundations, and it was a family business. So family business, you got to pull your weight. And it was pouring out and it was cold and they were digging the ditch, and Jay was just like, completely exhausted, freezing. I forget how old he was. I think he told me he was like 10 or something, or maybe he was maybe he was 13 or something. But and all the brothers were digging, and he asked his father, can he get out of the ditch because he's tired and cold? And his father said, get back to work. And his answer was, I'm a 10-year-old kid. And his father said, get back to work. So, that one little snippet in time did not mold who he is, but it gives you some indication of, where he came from, and the idea that hard work was instilled into him at a very young age, because, Jay, he's a workhorse.
Yeah. Nowadays, the kids would have sued the parents probably, right, for making them get in the ditch.
Jay's a workhorse, and of course, he doesn't need to work one more day in his life. But I text him all the time, and 14-hour days are very common.
Yeah.
In fact, he's in Vegas and I'm in Maine, so a lot of times I'll text him and I'm thinking like, oh, what am I texting him for? It's only 5 o'clock his time, and he texts back in seconds. I'm like,
oh, he gets up super early.
Yeah, he gets up early and stays up, the whole 9 yards. Gets up early. Besides the, still eat good, train. He's doing business all day long, and that foundation was set probably in bodybuilding, but probably when he was 10 years old, doing manual labor at such a young age. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I challenge anyone who has a schedule like Jay does, like I do, who's busy all the day. I challenge you to try to take 5 days and don't do anything during the day. Don't work at all. You go out of your freaking mind. I'll lose. Now I have kids, so I can, if I'm with the kids for the weekend, I can not work because they're distracting me. But Jay doesn't have kids. So his work is his passion. I mean, that's what he likes doing it. He might overdo it, and maybe he works more hours than he should, but that's just his mentality built into him. But if he didn't work, it's like you see the old Italian, my grandfather, 92 years old, on the roof, repairing the roof, painting. I'm like, what are you doing, Grandpa? He's like, he goes, the minute you stop moving, he goes, you die. He goes, so meaning what he really was saying to me is that if you don't do something that you enjoy, that you're passionate about, you're done. That's it. You might as well pack it in. There's no reason to be here anymore. So you got to find something that you really enjoy doing. If you can actually make money from it, that's even better. If it's not just a hobby, but if you do find something that you actually enjoy doing and you get paid from it, like what Jay does or what you do or what I do, you're going to work more hours than you ever would if you were working, on a 9-to-5 job. That's for sure. When you work for yourself. So
100%.
It's just, the question is, can you find something that you love doing and make a career out of it? And if you do that, I promise you'll be one happy camper the rest of your life. And on that note, Chris, we're going to wrap up today, as we say every week here at Heavy Muscle Radio.
The truth hurts.
We'll see you next week, guys.